In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. Whatever the virtues of the many fields of knowledge, all are steps on the path of omniscience. May these arise in the clear mirror of intellect. O Manjushri, please accomplish this. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome. Help me out, please. My little sheet was on page, 510? Session 3 of Vipassana. What did you have, Mary Beth? You didn't have it this time. Oh my God, usually you have it. Anyone else? Robert wasn't even
Does
here.
anybody have 512?
512. Very good. Anyone else?
Wait a minute, let me see. Looking at the present.
They sort of blend into each other at this point, right? It's hard to remember.
I have end page 512 before section 4.
That's 2.
And
Okay.
I'm on my iPad today, so you have to tell me the header, like because it's on
Cool.
electronic, when you figure it out.
It's all electronic. Cool.
Yeah, I have that problem too.
It's all digitals, all ones and zeros. Okay, well, let's, unless there's any challenge to that presumption, we'll go with page 512, having finished the third session. Why don't we read the bottom of 511 just to start. So, Sue and Chris, the bottom of 511 is the very last paragraph of session 3 in the Vipassana sessions in what's called the main practice in the text, dispelling the darkness, Mahamudra, dispelling the darkness of ignorance. 4, looking with stillness and movement. Yeah, so just before that, let's sum up the last one. You must look well and reach a conclusion. At this point, you should recognize that all thoughts and feelings are mind, like waves on water, and rest in that. In order to become certain about the abiding state, while resting in that recognition, look as has been described. That was the third session. So tonight we begin with session 4, looking with stillness and movement. Things are getting complicated. Looking with two opposite things happening at the same time. Is that possible? When your mind rests vividly in clarity, emptiness, look at its nature. if that ever happens. No, when that happens, sorry. When your mind rests vividly in clarity, emptiness, look at its nature. Then cause a thought to stir and look at its nature. Look, is the nature of stillness and the nature of movement the same or different? So, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that the nature of stillness is when your mind rests vividly in clarity, emptiness, given the way the sentences are structured. And the movement is when a thought stirs, or when you give rise to thoughts. Having looked in that way, if you see them as different, how are they different? Is it that stillness and movements arise in alternation, with their strengths being equally matched, like strings stretched out on a flat surface? So first you pluck one string, the string of stillness, and then you pluck the string of movement. And they rise one after another in alternation. When one is finished, the other arises. And when that one arises, the other one is not present. So it's all or none each moment, I guess. Or is stillness like the ground, and movement what grows from it like a tree? That's very different, right? That's like stillness is sort of still, it's still there. No pun intended, but I like that. Stillness is still there as the ground, and you have something growing out of the ground in this case. First there's just the ground, then you have a bean sprout of a thought. Or is stillness like, or are they both like a snake or rope, which can be coiled or not, so that one is present, the other is not? It's either a snake or a rope, and it flips back and forth, and there it's like either or completely. And how does that differ from, is it that stillness and movements arise in alternation, with their strengths being equally matched, like strength stretched out on a flat surface? How does that differ from, they're both like a snake or rope, which can be coiled or not? When one is present, the other is not. In other words, when there is stillness, there is no movement, and when there is movement, there is no stillness. So is that different than the first one? Is it that stillness and movement arise in alternation? Movement is the busyness of all kinds of rambling thoughts, and stillness is to rest without movement. Therefore, they are very different from each other. If you think that their natures are different, look. Do they have distinctive colors, shapes, and so forth? Do they differ in terms of their arising, abiding, or ceasing? So do we usually think like the stillness arise and abide and cease? What do you guys think? The choices are: stillness is a state which arises, abides, and ceases, or it's a state that's like there when we don't have thoughts and we go to it, and it's just there. Who likes the first choice, that it arises, abides, and ceases? Who likes the second choice, that it's like there, and when we have thoughts we don't notice it, and when we don't have thoughts we're with it? Very good. You want to change your vote? You want
Can't there
to
be a
abstain?
third?
Yeah, what's the third?
Okay, I have a headphone on half of this, so we'll try to talk. We'll see how it goes. Um, can't they both be at the same time?
So stillness and movement are present at the same time.
And
So
neither are arising, abiding, or ceasing.
say that again. They
Okay, they both they're both now. They're
present
both
at the
now,
same time.
present now, and neither arise, abide, or cease.
So thoughts don't arise, abide, and cease. They're continually present.
It appears so.
There's always thought. And where's the stillness
It's
in those thoughts?
everywhere. It's there. Lately or today, I was thinking a little bit like the magic eye thing. It's like they're both there.
They're
Both,
both there.
both. Yeah.
And can you visit one? Can you like visit one and then visit the other in sequence? Like first you visit one, then you visit the other.
Hmm. Yes, I think you can.
So when you're
But
visiting one, are you not in the other? When you're in stillness, you can sort of see the thoughts, but you're not in them.
that's getting very touchy.
Well, I mean, that does, I think, point to one of the
That's the
aspects of,
strings, right?
well, actually, no, I think that that kind of points to a sort of a third situation. I mean, if we're thinking there's just stillness or there's just movement, but there uh, can there be a yeah, quality of stillness, but with a little awareness of, like that quality you were just describing? Which one is that? Is that a coexisting situation? Let's see, is that
Is that like the ground and the movement that
ground in the
grows from it?
tree? Maybe. Um, you know,
Yeah.
it seems like it's not just two in some ways. I mean, on one hand it is, and on the other hand it's not, because there's all these different ways we experience it. Like I was thinking, like normally we don't think of stillness as being arising, abiding, and ceasing, but in some ways, if we think about our actual experience, I mean, conceptually we might not think about it that way, but if you think about your experience, if you experience a period of stillness, is that not arising, abiding, and ceasing in a way?
Yeah, is the does a that yeah, we could start there. Like, does stillness arise, abide, and cease?
So intellectually, I think the stillness is there, but my experience is it arises, abides, and and when the stillness arises, the thoughts disappear. So that's my experience. But
How
reading
how
all this stuff, intellectually it seems like the stillness is the ground, but that's intellectual. That's not the way I experience it.
Thank you. That's kind of what I was coming up with as well, that we, we have to be careful of, yeah, how much is a conceptual framework versus what do we actually experience. I mean, it's sort of funny, but if we think about, the typical experience of somebody who is maybe, let's just say, starting meditation, so their main experience would be movement, right? And so in that context, stillness would be the aberration rather than, if you've been sitting for a long time, then maybe you have more stillness, and movement is more of what comes and goes. But if you look from a beginner point of view, it could be the opposite, right?
Eric and
Um,
then I think Rob.
another way of looking at it, I really I get it's really great the difference between the intellectual and the experiential. But in a sense, even intellectually, if we come to the idea, I mean, not to be a spoiler, whatever, if we come to the idea that stillness and movement are actually the same in some sense, eventually, um, then they both arise and 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 fall, and that makes sense intellectually too. And to me, it's a question of differentiating between that which is looking at each of them, sometimes known as rigpa in some schools, um, and stillness. They're like sort of slightly different ideas. Still, I mean, our awareness is aware of the stillness and it's aware of the movement equally. So the idea that they each both stillness and movement arise, um, and was what and fall, um, makes sense intellectually too in a way.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Mary Beth. Oh, sorry.
uh, I'm going to agree with Eric. I think it's what, if anything, is arising and abiding and dissipating. It's actually the attention you're paying. What you're paying attention to is already there.
Yeah.
Thoughts are already there.
Well, no, movement is happening,
Yeah.
and then movement isn't necessarily just thoughts.
Right.
So so like it's like Eric said, the awareness, the awareness, either through training or karma, you know, that's now the frame, and so where you put that frame, that's temporal in that moment. Uh, uh, but what you're putting the frame on, that's when we're talking mind, that's not arising, abiding, or ceasing.
I'm seeing some perplexed looks at your last statement.
Well, mind abides.
The dude
Could you
abides.
could you define what you mean by mind in this
Uh,
case?
Sorry, can I
I'm
define
wondering if you
what?
could define what you mean by mind. Like, are you equating mind with awareness, as in Rigpa, or are
Yeah,
you
more like in the Rigpa sense. Yeah,
okay? So,
absolutely.
because obviously there's a lot of terms that
And uh, stuff that's codependent, interdependent, that arises, abides, and ceases. But the Rigpa stuff is when we're aware of our awareness, that's when we start to get into the Mahamudra.
How does the stillness differ from the awareness?
that's
Uh,
always Derek's question.
yeah,
Which one is the frame?
That's my question too.
I have to admit, I have one more question relative to what Rob said, which is you said movement isn't just thoughts. I wasn't quite sure whether you meant in terms of there's also appearances, or are you using that distinction, or was it some other?
and any experience, yeah, any appearance or experience, anything that's experiential is movement.
Okay, so thoughts, appearances, sensory stuff, all of that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So let me ask you guys a question. If stillness arises, abides, and departs, doesn't that mean it moves?
Did we agree that
Eric,
it does it
Uh,
do that? Abide? Does it
we
arise,
didn't.
abide, and
Not all of us agree to that. This is true.
I mean, for something to arise, doesn't it have to have a place that it starts?
Do thoughts have a place where they start?
No.
So nothing arises.
As far as I can tell, no. I mean, I could easily be wrong, but as far as I have been able to tell,
Do you have thoughts?
yes,
So are they always equally present?
equally present, equal to what? The
Uh,
amount
at,
of space they take.
at times when there are no thoughts. Are there
Well,
ever times with no thoughts?
actually, that's what I was saying. I think that and the stillness is happening both at the same time. And
Are, are they
I
always the same thoughts, or are they
no,
different thoughts?
all different thoughts.
Mary Beth, help us out.
So what if the, I mean, this might sound crazy, and this might actually be something that somebody else has already said, and I just don't really understand it, but something about that, like the movement is always there, but that the stillness are these, um, like inflection points where we could like get in there and make sure that the next thought is infused with an understanding of emptiness. And then make sure that the next thought, like we have our stillness moment and we make sure that we inflect into that, again, that understanding, like we just keep remembering it, and that the stillness are these inflection points where we have those opportunities to remember, sort of.
Gaps, right? Gaps.
Yeah, but
What
like
else are gaps? Are
important.
gaps and stillness the same?
Well, I was just going to say, I have to say what Mary Beth was describing, and I'm working on this Four Foundations thing. sounds a little bit like the way the fourth foundation works in the, sutra sense, where all of the sort of Dharma teachings are listed out, the Hendersons, the Skandhas, and all these things. And so it's sort of like by recognizing whatever you experience as being empty, impermanent, with all the three marks and all of that, that's sort of like what that practice is all about. So it sounded a little bit like what Mary Beth was describing. Whether you call it a gap or whether you just call it an awareness that whatever you're experiencing is also characterized by these general qualities of the three marks.
This is stillness characterized by the three marks.
I guess if it's part of our conditioned experience, I would imagine it is. But it's a good question.
So that what it means, it's impermanent and arises, abides, and ceases.
Well, again, I'm not saying I know that's the case, but I do think
Yeah.
that there's, in a way, I feel like there is a way in which you could kind of flip our normal thinking that stillness, steadiness is always there. Say it's not, it could arise and cease.
We got to nail this down. Eric,
But
get out that nail and
This is
hammer
great.
the
This is
nail.
really great. I kind of agree with Mary Beth and Cynthia, or I think that's leading towards the way I experience it. But I guess I would sum up the way I experience it by saying that the alternation, the alternation of movement and stillness is what reminds us of the three marks. We observe that alternation. It's not just that, it's not that we prefer one over the other.
So the observation reminds us of the three marks.
Well, not the observation, but observing the alternation of stillness and movement.
So our thoughts, do they are they characterized by the three marks? Thoughts?
Well, yeah, yeah, I think so. I've never really thought of it that way before, actually.
Yeah.
Before the second.
Are thoughts dharmas? All dharmas are compounded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
Is stillness a thought? Is stillness a dharma?
No.
Stillness and dharma. So you've come up with something you can experience that's not a dharma.
I'm not
I
sure.
don't know. I'm not sure about that.
So, well, in experience is stillness. It's solid. It just is. It's not rising. It's not moving. It's just this sudden. There it is, and it's real. But thoughts, I mean, if you don't feed them, you realize they're just kind of like dreams that come in and fade out. And if you grasp onto them, then you're like stuck in them, and you're. But stillness is different, and it's that indescribable. Like it's just snap. And it's like
Is it momentary stillness?
it's
Or does
the
it
only
abide?
momentary to me is that it's hard to hold on to it, but it's just yeah, it's
No, you're just not. We just
and that's
lose
why
sight of
it's almost like it's just there, and you're suddenly seeing it.
it.
So Robert and then Lori was trying to chime in earlier, no?
We just
And then
lose.
Sue.
We just lose sight of it. It's still there. The stillness is always there.
Oh, the stillness is always there.
The
So
stillness
is it continuous or
it's
impermanent?
continuous. It's always there. We lose a handle of on it sometimes, but that's on us. It's not on stillness. Stillness is just there.
So it's permanent.
Also, when we do
It's unchanging.
when we want to gain certainty in the view, what is it that we do? We cultivate stillness and then drop our insights into it, right? That's
Oh,
the
wow.
practice.
What
Yeah.
fascinating language. We drop our insights into stillness.
right? I mean, that's basically the technique, isn't it? Am I misspeaking here? Do I have it all wrong?
I've never heard it described in that way. It's
Who's
very
Again,
dropping
possible
it
we're
and where
talking about
but
something that I would describe differently.
but that's the perfect opportunity when stillness comes around. That's when you pose a dharma question or a dharma assertion.
And does the stillness depart?
No,
yeah.
Oh,
at that moment you have both. At that moment you have both stillness and movement, and
You
they're
you
wow.
could you call it.
and they can cohabitate.
They can get along.
Yeah.
Emptiness and luminosity. Why can't they just get along? Form and emptiness. Lori, and then back to Sue, and then Mary Beth.
So I was just going to say if we keep reading, we get the answer.
Oh, darn, Lori. Don't do that.
Just read, go, follow, keep going, and
This was
It
so
all,
helpful.
it's,
I mean,
yeah, I mean,
it's true. We've all read that. But
remember the spirit of what this is supposed to be doing the investigations. So I think it's actually quite brilliant that we're all, teasing out all of these different nuances of how we actually experience it, because that's
and
what we have to
yeah.
be
And
certain.
then when the answer is given, we'll see how does that suddenly change our answer.
I think
Anyway,
I don't want
But
to
it's
look at
good to
the
know it's there.
yeah,
Let's
don't do
not
that.
look yet. So let's spend a little more time on this. But the last presentation was that stillness and movement cohabitate, and they do not bother each other. Okay, wow. Sue and then Mary Beth.
Okay, so the instructions for sitting where you're relaxing, like in a nest, and you're there experiencing, or if you were lucky, realizing something, so there is in that, what, the stillness and the movement are always there. Otherwise, you couldn't relax and sit in the face of reality. That's what I think. And because the reality is both. I don't seems like.
Yeah.
Mary Beth.
I didn't have anything.
Eric.
Um,
You muted yourself. Could,
I'm going to double down on what I said before at the risk of coming to the end of this thing and realizing that I'm an idiot and don't remember what it said. I again think that there's a difference between awareness and stillness that's sometimes confused. In fact, confusing stillness for awareness, I believe, leads to the trap of the jhanas. At least that's the way I visualize it, whereby we get stuck in sort of restful stillness, um, to the oblivion of actual insight. Insight arises from awareness, not from stillness.
Is awareness the looker?
Awareness is the looker, I guess. Rigpa, anyway, the awareness.
Yeah, cool. Anyone else? Morgan, Zeke, Barbara?
Yeah, I isn't stillness an attribute, not a thing, not a dharma?
Yeah, so what is it an attribute of?
Dharmas, they're moving or they're still.
Uh, okay, when we say movement, we're also talking about an attribute then?
Yeah,
And
or
what
a verb,
dharmas
if you want to
what
say it that way.
yeah, what dharmas perform the activity of moving?
And almost any dharma.
Yeah, almost any dharma. What kind of dharma performs the function of stillness?
I don't know if that's even possible because wouldn't stillness imply unchangingness?
That's what it sounds like, right? It's still.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's, I guess, like ultimate reality of emptiness, but there's nothing conventionally that conforms to that.
Yeah. So it's not even an attribute.
It's the absence of an attribute, an absence of movement.
It's an
Like the same way that
absence of
darkness is the
movement.
absence of light.
And so we can't say that darkness, can we perceive darkness?
We can infer it.
But we can't, can we directly cognize it?
I mean, if you want to get like technical on a scientific thing, it's just the absence of photons hitting your eyeballs,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
isn't a thing you perceive.
No, it's not, no. And light, what about light? Can we perceive light?
Yeah, light is photons hitting your eyes. They cause an excitation that you see.
But we don't, do we see the photons?
No, we see a reaction to the photons.
So do we see we don't see any reaction to darkness?
I don't know. That's hard. I mean, it seems more like something that's inferred, but I don't know.
So we're getting to the point where movement is a quality of any dharma. The
Yeah.
only way that we can observe dharmas is because they move.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're not observing dharmas, then there's the absence of movement, which we relatively call stillness, but there's actually no thing that's stillness.
Right.
Could I ask a couple questions about that? So,
Yeah.
I mean, aren't there dharmas that, like a rock or something that's not actually moving? You just were saying it was like all dharmas are moving, but I don't think that's necessarily always true. And the other question is mind considered a dharma or not?
Yes, mind is a dharma.
So if mind is a dharma, then stillness could be an attribute of mind,
Mm-hmm.
no?
Well, I mean, again, an inferred sort of, because again, I'm sorry. What was your first question again,
Well, I
Cynthia?
was just you before we were talking about you were talking about stillness
Rocks.
being an attribute, and that movement also would be an attribute. And so it seemed like Derek was agreeing that dharmas move, and so that worked as an attribute, but that stillness doesn't because.
Oh, yeah, you were
So
saying
I'm
that
just saying it seems like it seemed like you were trying to say that that stillness couldn't be an attribute because attribute of what? And so that's why I came up with mind as being something that stillness could be an attribute of
but all
momentarily.
all dharmas arise and cease, and that's a movement.
Yeah, instantaneous impermanence, right?
You're talking
Yeah,
about
Light,
like
impermanent.
consciousness. You're talking
yeah.
about
Stillness
consciousness.
is an act. Stillness is an absence of impermanence, which you can't have.
Yeah, so it'd be an absence of dharmas.
Yeah.
Stillness is an absence of impermanence. Why? Um,
All dharmas are impermanent.
okay.
You can
And
hit
are we
a rock,
saying that
but you
stillness? Are
can't.
we saying that stillness is permanent?
How do you get stillness? How do
Stillness
you?
is persistent. It's not necessarily
It's not
permanent,
a
but it
dharma.
it has to go from one instance to the next.
Right.
It's
So
not a
then,
You can't
dharma.
be still
It's not
for
a
an
dharma.
instant.
There is no such thing as
Yeah.
stillness.
okay, there's no such thing. So why are we talking about it? Just kidding.
That's a good question. Why does it come up? Why did we get here? Just really simply, why are we talking about stillness?
Because
Well, that's the
We
funny
think
part. How
it's
are we aware of it? It's
it.
weird. Like,
Mary
oh,
Beth, what
We think it.
we
It's
think
it's a little bit like our mind, right? We think it's there, so it must be, but I mean, maybe it's just because we have to think, we think movement and stillness.
and why are we obsessed with thinking about stillness when we talk about meditation?
well, because it's part of this dichotomy that they're always talking about.
It's
They're talking,
presented as like the goal in meditation, right? To achieve stillness.
well, in the beginning, sometimes it's presented as the goal, but in the context of this text or others like it, it's presented as one of the parts of our experience of mind, along with movement. So obviously, that's one of the reasons we talk about it, because they keep asking us to look at it.
But when you read like the conclusion of like this, when they describe the state of mind that's sort of beyond that is neither with thoughts or without thoughts, it sounds a lot like it's still, like it abides, right? The abiding nature of mind. Is the abiding nature of mind still?
I would say I'm kind of leaning towards what Eric was talking about, that the abiding is more the awareness part that can be aware of stillness or movement.
So, so abiding implies that it doesn't arise and pass away.
That's kind of what abiding sounds like, yeah.
So we're talking about an unconditioned dharma.
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Morgan, help me out here.
Thinking about
These
it, actually
theists are
movement
getting.
isn't even an attribute of a dharma, because movement can only exist in two instants. You can't have movement in a single instant. So if a dharma only exists for a single instant, it doesn't move, except to appear and disappear.
Yeah, I think we're getting somewhere now. So what does that imply then that the terms are referring to?
Whatever, it seems like it's referring to, it's kind of what Mary Beth was getting at, I think. The illusory, I mean, it's all kind of the illusory nature of what we think mind is, and we're working with it. The reason why it's so important in terms of skillful means is because that's the way things seem to us when we start to sit and look at our mind. We seem to experience stillness, and then we seem to experience movement. And
Do
I
we
think
have a
ultimately,
preference?
well, I think it's an incorrect preference to prefer the stillness. Seems much more comfortable if we're having like painful thoughts or we're looking at painful things in the room or whatever it is. That's the so-called movement, but it's an illusion. The whole difference between the two is an illusion, and and I think that's what gets resolved at some point beyond my experience, with being able to rest in Rigpa for long enough to see that it's kind of all space around all of it, and in all
When,
of it.
when you rest in Rigpa, what is it that rests in Rigpa?
That's a really good question, because that's the infinite regress that we begin by saying, what's, this is looking at this, is looking at this, that whole thing. Um,
So it's more like a reflexive thing, you could say, maybe.
yeah, it's reflexive. It's awareness of awareness, self-awareness, self-aware awareness.
Isn't there something about like we're a butterfly dreaming we're a person or something like that? Well, should we go on? That was great, by the way. Thank you. Let's see. So we finished the paragraph. Is it that when there is stillness, there is no movement, and when there is movement, there is no stillness? And we ended up concluding that we don't know, right? I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. Movement is the busyness of all kinds of rambling thoughts, and stillness is to rest without movement. Therefore, they're very different from each other. If you think that their natures are different, look. Do they have distinctive colors, shapes, and so forth? We did this actually. Do they differ in terms of their arising, abiding, or ceasing? Do they differ in being past, future, or present? Or do they differ in being permanent or impermanent? That's where we were ending up, right? We were talking about stillness as being like a permanent, unconditioned dharma. Alternatively, if you know thoughts to be meditation, you see stillness and movements to be nothing other than of the same nature. Their way of arising is to appear in alternation. When there is stillness, there is no movement. Ooh. He disagrees with some of you. And when there is movement, there is no stillness. Like water and waves, they are only the modes or actions of a single mind. But with water and waves, there's waves when there's still water, right? There's waves when there's water. They're not, it's not an either or the way
Waves are
stillness and
water.
movement. That's right. So there's both. Instead of like what he said,
It's
just
not two. It's inherently, I mean, the manifestation is varied, but it's all water.
yeah. So that is that the same as the stillness and movement?
No, no, there's still, there's water that can be still or be moving, not at the same time in the same place.
But it's still water. Just
It's still
kidding.
water.
Using still in a different way.
It's
So,
seltzer.
would you like still or what do they call it?
Sparkling.
Anyway, sparkling. um, like water and waves, they are only the modes or actions of a single mind. Mind is single. Interesting. That is all there is. If you realize that both stillness and movements are never anything other than naked, empty clarity, you have slightly won the answer. Got the answer. Nevertheless, you must check. Is there empty clarity because you have drawn in a thought and placed it in meditation? You get over here. Come here. Right here. Sit down. Meditate. Or does empty clarity follow the disappearance of a thought? Or is it that a sudden thought is empty clarity? If you think that it is like either of the first two, you should continue to energetically supplicate your guru. Do not pass go. And again, exert yourself in looking. So if you think it's either of the first two, so there were three, is there empty clarity because you've drawn in a thought? Or does empty clarity follow the disappearance? Or is it that a sudden thought is empty clarity? So thoughts are moving stillness. Is that what we concluded? And exert yourself in looking. By doing so, it is certain you will see the nature of thoughts at some point. Maybe when they stop moving. Can you see the nature of thoughts when they stop moving? If thoughts stop moving, are they still thoughts?
They're not there anymore, right?
Well, now you're just having thoughts about thoughts.
Wait, if they
Thought.
have the same nature, then yes, right? If they have the same, isn't this all saying they have the same nature?
Of empty clarity. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
think that's what he
so
just said.
then,
Then yeah. Thank you. By practicing those ways of looking at the nature, experiences and realizations will arise differently for the three types of individual. What is the three types of individual? Big, small, in between.
The slow, the fast, and the ones that jump around.
And the leapfroggers.
Leapfroggers, yeah, there you go.
The bypassing, that's what the leapfroggers are. The bypassing type might experience Vipassana first, then Shamatha. Sometimes neither, sometimes both. The instantaneous type, through the force of their previous training, develop Shamatha and Vipassana simultaneously, through merely being presented with symbols. Isn't that cool? We should give everybody a pair of symbols when they come to meditate. Instantaneous shaman. We see who it works for.
I had a hard time with that. I was like, symbols, what does he mean? Like, I see a Vajra or something, and what does he mean by symbols?
Yeah, anyone, what does he mean by symbol?
So like when the Buddha held up the flower?
And he said, does anyone have salt, pepper? Yeah. When Naropa got transmission from Tilopa, right, in the biography of Naropa, Tilopa holds up all these symbols. He holds up a rope, he holds up a crystal, he holds up a whole bunch of different things. And Naropa like explains them like instantaneously. It's pretty good. But it was a little bit of a setup, I think, is what I heard, the inside story. But yeah, the symbols like connect you into a non-conceptual experience of the unity of shamatha vipassana, I think is the idea. And so symbols, a tradition imbues certain objects with sort of this symbolic power. You know, for us it could be money, you know, it could be a variety of things if we like develop that into a certain context, I guess.
So in that story about I think it's Patro Rinpoche and up on the mountain with his student, and do you hear the dogs barking at the monastery and all of that, right? Would those also be symbols in a sense, or not?
I don't think so. I don't think in the same way.
That's a
Do you?
different. I'm
Yeah,
not sure. That's why I'm asking.
yeah. I think
Have,
it's different, that way of doing pointed out.
okay, yeah. So you think that it has to be something more of an specific kind of representational object type of thing?
Yeah, that has some meaning, some connected meaning to it. But I don't know, maybe not. The gradual type progresses in stages. Here the presentation is from the perspective of the latter, the gradual. Gurus should instruct their students having assessed the way their experiences and realizations develop. Looking involves having clarity, but being without grasping, like a small child gazing at a shrine hall. Within that state, be very diligent about looking. Cast aside laziness. Have revulsion. That's interesting. No needs. Determination to be released. Devotion and faith. Stabilize. Undistracted mindfulness. Within an uncontrived state, do not be bound by any hopes or fears. Do not just have a vague sense about what is to be practiced. That's an interesting part. Be certain about what is to be practiced. Only pursue what will benefit you in future lives. Wow, that's a good one. If you exert yourself in these ways of looking at your mind, the wisdom of Vipassana will definitely develop quickly. There is no way that it will not. That is how to determine the natures of both stillness and movement. And this is the fourth session. 5. Pointing out instruction in relation to stillness. Those who have looked at the nature of stillness, movement, and so forth and practiced those key instructions for mind probably will not need pointing out instructions. Recognition of the mind's nature will emerge spontaneously from within. Some, however, may have that recognition but not know it. Others, who have an intellectual understanding, a dry sense based on what they have heard, and the desire for excellent experiences and realizations to quickly develop, may express themselves flawlessly using dormant terminology, despite not having had any experiences. So, intellectual understanding, a dry sense based on what we've heard, the desire for excellent experiences and realizations to develop quickly. Right? That's an interesting list of things to overcome, right? Or to work through. Since there are such dangers, gurus must differentiate between these kinds of practitioners. Students must also engage the practice by penetrating its essential point. Penetrating an essential point. Okay. The first way to give the pointed out instructions relates to the first approach of looking at the nature. Use the ways of looking at the nature of the resting mind, and so forth, as described above. So I think he's referring to session 1, looking with stillness. Using the ways of looking at the nature of the resting mind, and so forth, as described above. The nature of stillness is a brilliant, sharp, naked state, not mere emptiness. Within that state of stillness, the unidentified mind is vivid. The unidentified mind, that's what threw me, the unidentified mind. That's neat. Within that state of stillness, the unidentified mind is vivid, open, stark, crisp, and relaxed. The implication, I guess, is that when there's stillness that's that powerful, you can't identify your mind. The observer sort of relaxes and lets go into stillness. It is not something that can be said to have this color or that shape, nor can it be described verbally by saying, it is like this. Nevertheless, while not being identifiable, the clear, unobstructed mind is vibrant, crisp, naked, stark, and sharp. Earlier he said it's also vivid and relaxed. What is seen that cannot be seen, what is experienced that cannot be experienced, and what is known that cannot be known, is nothing about which you can think, it's exactly like this. That's a great statement. One more time. What is seen that cannot be seen, what is experienced that cannot be experienced, and what is known that cannot be known, is nothing about which you can think, it's exactly like this.
Right, like in Taoism, they say the way that can be named is not the way.
Yeah. The way that can be known is not the way. And yet there is something that arises within you, even though it is not something you can talk about by saying, it is this way. It may be that with deep conviction you experience lucid, quiet stillness, clear yet empty, without being identified. So that's the stillness. Sue.
I'm just seeing it says, and yet there's something that arises within you. So I'm just looking at that word arises.
Yeah.
We've been talking about, does anything arise, abide? So
Yeah.
is it a state?
It seems
Because
to
what
be an
it is,
experience.
lucid, quiet, stillness, yet clear, empty. So is it the awareness that Eric was talking about? A kind of, um, does realization arise, abide, and cease? Or experience? Because later he talks about the difference between
I think it's
experience and
experience
experience. So you have an experience.
that
And so,
arises from within.
but don't all experiences have an experiencer?
I think so.
So,
So I think we have not yet transcended
okay.
experience at this point.
Just was trying to think that out.
Yeah, yeah. But admittedly, the language is inherently sort of dualistic and relative in describing things as if they exist as a skillful means to help us move along, I guess. So we
Is
shouldn't.
it so that, like, when you flash on something, it's like familiar because we read about it? Oh, it's a
Good spot.
cow.
That's possible. You might have greater ability to experience it. If this is merely an understanding, nothing will come of it because it won't inspire confidence. If it arises from within, that is it. Vipassana has dawned within stillness. Therefore, the only thing to do is to see the nature directly, like pulverizing bones with a rock. If you receive pointing out instructions too soon, they will remain as objects of a theoretical understanding, and you will become jaded. That's an interesting statement. It's a little bit of a non sequitur, right? Compared to what he was talking about the sentence before. But that's a very profound, a very important statement. If you receive pointing out too soon, it will remain theoretical and become jaded. That will undermine any guidance someone else may give later. Without receiving the pointed out instructions and cutting through the stream of thoughts, you will not see the nature. Cutting through the nature of thoughts, you will not see the nature. Without seeing the nature, the pointing out cannot happen. It's a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing going on there. If you do not recognize what is pointed out, your meditation will not become your path. When you have good experiences, look. When you have bad experiences, repeatedly clarify or recall the instructions. Training in the ways to sustain practice is called being guided. That's a great statement. Once meditation is understood, that is called completing the guidance. Once meditation is understood, completing the guidance, does that mean that then you're able to meditate because the guidance is complete and you can now do it on your own? By maintaining non-distraction in such a state of meditation, you will develop experiences and realizations without difficulties. Thus, seeing the nature produces certainty and eliminates doubts. In order to bring that about, now what is to be pointed out is as follows. Generally speaking, meditation consists of shamatha, which in Tibetan is ji, ne, we don't pronounce the ji, and vipassana. When your mind remains relaxed in its natural condition, all thoughts are pacified, ji, in their own place, and mind rests, ne, clearly and quietly in its natural state. Your mind does not engage in the distractions of this worldly life. It is comfortable and buoyant. Your mental afflictions are completely pacified, ji. To the degree that you remain one-pointedly in the nature of what is virtuous, you have mastery, as opposed to just like a tiny little glimpse or understanding or experience. You may have no sense of the coming and going of breath. That is exceptional shamatha. It is primarily an experience, and while it does not function as realization, it is essential. By sustaining shamatha without fixation, and not letting it slip into dullness, agitation, or a neutral state of indifference, you see that the nature of mind is free from being something that can be thought about or described as having a color or shape, such that you could say, it is this way. I think that's sort of what we experienced in our discussion earlier, is that we couldn't really come up with a clear description of the situation of mind and stillness and movement. like the pleasure experienced by a young person. not, not, not any of us, I guess. What you know and experience isn't something that you can describe as an intellectual object saying, it is like this. It is unified clarity and emptiness without identification or the extremes of conceptual elaborations. Sue.
Yeah, so I'm up in Cape Cod and I've been with my 5-year-old granddaughter, and um, it's real, when children are in complete free play, and if you can do it with them, it's really quite a lot like meditation and there is that total movement and total stillness. And it's just like that, it's just, and then of course it doesn't last just like any other moment. I
What
really,
happens what happens when it deteriorates and when it doesn't last? What does it shift into?
good question. Well, it could be short sessions. Then you get into the next, little improvisation thing, or it could be, you get into me and you. Yeah, it separates into me and you, or this and that, and yeah.
Does anybody else have any grandchildren here? Eric. Is it like meditation, Lori?
I never thought of it that way, but it's a boy instead of a girl, which may account for a lot less stillness.
Yeah, it's not true for boys at all. I have 3 grandsons too. It never happens.
I'm visiting my 9-month-old grandson this week, so I'll let you know.
Okay, you report back next week. Thank you. Okay, let's see. It is unified clarity and emptiness without identification or the extremes of conceptual elaborations. It cannot be altered by any dharmic concepts or be sullied by worldly ideas. A mental state that is not affected by stagnant non-conceptuality and shamatha is naturally settled and free in its own place. It is the root of all excellent qualities. That sentence is a little confusing. A mental state that is not affected by stagnant non-conceptuality and shamatha. So is shamatha, along with stagnant non-conceptuality, not affecting that mental state? Or is it that you have a mental state and shamatha is naturally settled and free in its own place?
One way I was reading the sentence just now was like that it would be maybe clearer to write, there is a mental state that is not affected by stagnant non-conceptuality and shamatha that is naturally settled and free in its own place. And I'm not sure
There,
that's quite the right reading, but that seems to
yeah,
make better sense of the sentence to me.
yeah. There is a state that cannot be altered by any dharmic concepts. Sorry, there is a mental state that's not affected by stagnant non-conceptuality, and shamatha is naturally settled and free in its own place, meaning that that mental state is experiencing shamatha, I imagine. Cynthia.
Well,
I think, and this goes along with what I think Zeke was saying in his rewording, that in this case, I think what they're saying is stagnant non-conceptuality and stagnant shamatha. I'm guessing that's another way to read it, is that if you're not affected by stagnancy, which
Yeah,
can apply to shamatha,
yeah,
then the state can be naturally settled and free.
that's good. Yeah, so the without the parenthetical, then the sentence would be a mental state that is naturally settled and free in its own place, not affected by stagnant non-conceptuality and stagnant shamatha. Yeah, that makes
I think
sense.
it just needs a comma.
Yeah, yeah. often, often that's what we need is a comma.
I guess I was thinking that maybe it really means any shamatha, and maybe this just to venture this, it's that it's sort of saying, of
That's
course,
the other option.
right,
That
like
is the
of
other
course
option.
we're doing this through shamatha to perceive or experience. But what I thought it was trying to say is, look, and I'm going to use the spatial metaphor underneath, which doesn't really do it justice, but it's something like underneath it all, there's a naturally settled and free in its own place mind. It's not affected by your stagnant. It's not affected by your perfect shamatha. It's not affected by anything that we're doing. It is just always there, naturally settled and free in its own place.
Yeah, that is the other option. A mental state that is not affected by stagnant non-conceptuality and not affected by shamatha.
Yeah, it's just a little, the only odd thing, I mean, I thought about that too, but why would the effect of shamatha, shamatha is, it can have stagnancy and all that stuff, but it also can be something that brings you to a, you know, settled state that's free in its own place, right? I
Well,
mean, I guess that's the question is whether maybe they're saying that because shamatha has a conceptual aspect, therefore it sort of taints the, um,
I looked at it as it's not even about tainting. It's a little bit like the difference between epistemology and ontology. He's just saying unconcerning yourself with how you reach it. It's just there. That natural state is just there. And whether you're don't confuse, oh, I'm doing good shamatha and therefore my mind is settled. No, settledness is already there.
Lori?
Right.
I
No,
was,
exactly.
I
Don't
was
take
just,
credit for it.
I was just going to say it's the paragraph starts by referencing sustaining shamatha without fixation and not letting it slip into dullness. So maybe it's to be read shamatha, a mental state. I thought that might help us, but I'm not sure it
no,
does.
I think that is a good point. The first sentence does seem to suggest that shamatha, without fixation, etc., you see that the nature of mind is free from being, you know, solid and color and shape and all that. So that's
So
it.
your way to get to it is shamatha, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this other sentence is very much a puzzle. I think there's many possible interpretations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's go on. It, whatever the it is the root of all excellent qualities. That is called ordinary mind, or just mind. Not recognizing it is to be ignorant and in samsara. Recognition is called awareness wisdom, or nirvana, connate wisdom, the intrinsic state, luminosity, or vipassana. Interesting that vipassana is synonymous with those other terms. Now, those are the primary indications of the distinction between samsara and nirvana. Having received the pointed out instructions from the Guru, the disciple's recognition is like that of reuniting with an old friend. That recognition is called recognizing the mind. It doesn't occur because the disciple has great prajna or because the Guru is skilled in giving instructions. It occurs because this is how the mind has always been. Previously, that wasn't recognized because it was obscured by mental afflictions and thoughts. Now, since thoughts are interrupted and the nature of mind has been pointed out, there is recognition. Now, since thoughts are interrupted and the nature of mind has been pointed out, there is recognition. This unidentified, vibrant clarity of mind is its nature. While not existing, it vividly appears. That is mind's characteristic. So, contradictory characteristics right? Somewhat like the stillness and the movement issue of like all these contradictory possibilities. The essence of emptiness, clarity, and awareness is sparkling, vivid, is sparkling, flat, or still, or tap, is sparkling, vivid, continuous. That is mind's essence. If you maintain a naked recognition of that at all times without wavering, one of the unimaginable benefits is that Vipassana will dawn within stillness. It seems that's the second time that we've seen that phrase, right? Vipassana dawning within stillness. Did we just have that? It sounds familiar. Since that is the recognition of what is pointed out, the nature of mind during stillness, that's an interesting phrase right there, that what is pointed out is the nature of mind during stillness.
Well, remember the header of this whole section is about pointing out within stillness.
That's right, thank you.
Which doesn't mean it's the only way, doesn't mean it's the only way it can happen.
In relation to it is the first set of the actual pointing out instructions. So we're in session 5, and so we've shifted from looking to pointing out. It is important to penetrate the vital points, bring them into experience, and maintain recognition constantly. Therefore, recognize and sustain that. What would be an example of a vital point that we would penetrate?
Knowing the nature of mind.
There's plural, right? Vital points.
I'm just giving you one example.
But that seems to be like the whole thing. You know, it seems like he's referring to a group.
It almost seems like it's the opposite, that the vital points should penetrate.
The confused mind.
Yeah, that all the.
I think having that clarity experience and yet not being able to say it is like this, maybe, is so you have that. That's a vital point, isn't it? That there's an experience, a vivid experience, and yet you can't describe it, you can't point to it.
Yeah, I sort of, I think I'm with you. I think the vital points are like all the different things that he just like listed in this section. Like there's a huge number of them. And maintain recognition constantly. Therefore, recognize and sustain that. That was the 5th session.
Can I ask you a question quickly?
Yeah.
This phrase, I think, is way more familiar to many of you than it is to me. But I just wondered if you could say something about the actual action of pointing out, because like it's sort of a technical term, but then here he seems to just mean pointing out, like just like point it out, show the vital point, like this. And to the extent this is instructions to the teacher, this is like show the student that the essence of mind is this. But does pointing out just mean something else, and I should have some more context for understanding what that action is supposed to mean here?
Yeah, so like in the paragraph before, it says, it doesn't occur because the disciple is great prajna or because the guru is skilled in giving instructions. So traditionally the guru instructs the disciple in identifying the abiding nature of mind by pointing out the abiding nature of mind in a specific situation that has a certain level of contrivance that's meant to bring about a state of receptivity in the student's mind to having their abiding nature of mind pointed out or identified in a way that they can see it, so to speak. And in the tradition of Trungpa Rinpoche, he was there's a very definite ceremony or ritual that's called the pointing out instructions. And as Tashi Namgyal says, it's very important that one has adequate preparation for that, so that one doesn't become jaded and purely rely upon an intellectual understanding, Cynthia.
I would just add to all of that, which is good, that I think it's useful to look again at the first line of this whole section where it says, those who have looked at the nature of stillness, movement, and so forth, and practiced these key instructions for mind, probably will not need pointing out, which I think is pointing to the fact that there are those ways that Derek described that are like events. And there is also, in the Mahamudra tradition, there is very much this process that we are in fact reading about and going through with this whole text that we're studying here, which leads you in a different way, a little bit more self-propelled, you might say, where you go through these various things, and that it's a different way of coming to the realization. So it's just, I think, kind of useful to know that, so that, we don't get completely locked into the notion that on one hand, in some traditions, pointing out is the main thing. But I think in this tradition, there is this also kind of alternative view.
Well, 6, pointing out instructions in relation to non-conceptuality and conceptuality. The second way of looking cuts through a basis and root. This set of pointed out instructions is given in relation to non-conceptuality and in relation to movement or thoughts. That is, once a thought arises or you have caused the thought to arise. Among these two, i.e. options, the first is as follows. First, non-conceptuality, looking at mind in a non-conceptual state, quiet, vibrantly clear stillness, free from dullness or agitation. There is not even the thought, this is what is thought of as being without color or shape, what has no arising or ceasing. When there is something known without any arising or ceasing, Vipassana has dawned within non-conceptuality. That's a great statement. When there is something known without any arising or ceasing. Second, conceptuality. Those who say that all movements of thoughts are empty, free from arising or cessation, may just be using the jargon of emptiness. If thoughts vanish without any trace, without their arising, abiding, or ceasing, shape or color being identified, a little experience of Vipassana in relation to thoughts has developed. If the arising of a thought and its freeing are simultaneous, without being identified as such, without even the thought, there is nothing to be identified, with no sense of that being significant, and with no clinging, that is recognition of what is being pointed out. Furthermore, thoughts and the objects of thoughts, the mind at rest and in motion, a previous state of mind, or previous thoughts are neither good nor bad. They are not different in even the slightest way. They are realized to be naked, clarity, emptiness. It is not It is not that thoughts become empty clarity after they are drawn in or after they disappear. The very thought that suddenly appears is realized to be or manifests as empty clarity. That is recognition of what is being pointed out. The very thought that suddenly appears is realized to be or manifests as empty clarity. That is recognition of what is being pointed out. Now, all three, the movements of thoughts, stillness, and the nature of thoughts themselves, are stripped down to empty clarity. There are no differences at all beyond those created by the mind, misinterpreting, and grasping at its own lack of recognition of the nature of thoughts and non-conceptuality. Previously, since you did not recognize the nature of thoughts, they were not meditation, they were ignorance. Now, when you do recognize that, thoughts themselves are meditation and are awareness, wisdom. Now make thoughts the basis of your meditation. Earlier, thoughts obscured themselves and you did not see their nature. Thoughts obscured themselves. How do thoughts obscure themselves? That's an interesting statement. Figurative statement.
Is
For sure.
is that the same as in the paragraph before when it says there are no differences at all beyond the mind misinterpreting and grasping at its own lack of recognition of the nature of thoughts and non-conceptuality? Because the mind misinterpreting and grasping at its own lack of recognition. Is that the same as what you just said?
Pretty much, yeah. Thoughts obscured themselves, yeah, pretty much. What is superior to meditating upon non-conceptuality is now knowing how to meditate on concepts. Is superior to conceptuality. Recognize the nature of whatever thoughts arise. If thoughts don't arise, remain within their not arising. You need not provoke them. If they arise, rest right within their arising. You need not dissolve them. Don't create hopes and fears. Make thoughts the essence of your meditation. Thoughts are not beyond the mind. Mind self-liberates. Its essence is naked clarity, emptiness, the Dharmakaya, with nothing to be liberated and no means of liberation. Realizing that is the dawning of Vipassana within thoughts. Realizing that is the dawning of Vipassana within thoughts. It is the recognition of the unification of clarity, emptiness as the Dharmakaya. In brief, recognize the nature of whatever arises. Rest right within that, sustaining it without contrivance, without wandering. That is the second set of the actual pointing out instructions. Recognition is not enough. You must sustain it. That was the sixth session, pointing out in relation to non-conceptuality and conceptuality, versus the first one was stillness. 7, pointing out instructions in relation to appearances and body. The third set of pointing out instructions introduces the inseparability of appearances and mind in relation to appearances, looking at any of the 5 types of external objects, the 5 types being the objects of the 5 senses. You see that objects are unceasing and transparent without the thought that object is out there. The mind that looks at them is free without grasping. Those two, the mind and the so-called supposed object out there, are neither the same nor different. There is not even the thought that they are neither the same nor different. Not being the same or different, body and mind are inseparable. They are unified clarity emptiness, appearance emptiness. Like the moon reflected in water, sensations such as of hot and cold are also appearances. It is simply that, not knowing them to be appearance emptiness, the mind endlessly labels them and grasps at them. Realize that in actuality there is no basis of designation for the sensation experienced by the body or mind. Direct your gaze and attention to whatever appears, then relax somewhat and rest. At first, the details of those objects will be clear. Next, you may not really want to keep looking. You may feel nauseous or find that your vision has gone numb. And so objects vanish on their own. Then when you look again for a while, appearances become vivid with no clinging. They vanish into their own estate. At that point, if you and appearances are inseparable, vivid appearance emptiness without being objects, you are experiencing the reflexive appearances of the abiding state, the characteristics of mind. External appearances and the internal mind are not different. The self-radiance of mind manifests freely.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
So, in the first paragraph, talking about appearances, then the next paragraph, now we're talking about body and how they're inseparable. I guess I was thinking body like my body and mind.
That's what
So
it seems
so I just wondered, are we supposed to think appearances and body are the same here, or it just seems like that suddenly goes into body
from appearances.
if body wasn't mentioned at all, I could kind of follow, but now, but just realize that in act there's no basic for the sensations. Maybe it's just a wording thing.
Well, it could just be that for this particular paragraph, they're focusing on the body experience. And then I think they move on to, direct your gaze and attention to whatever appears. So it might just be that that's just one step in
Okay.
in the process of looking at appearances. Because if you again look at the header, appearances and body, so they are using body as essentially one of the
I'll keep going.
appearances. We tend to, I guess we don't tend to think of the body as an appearance because we tend to associate it with the
That's
simplicity, right?
right. But it does,
Careful on the steps. Lisa.
but the body, we do have sensations from our body, which are kind of like appearances.
Right.
So
I mean,
maybe,
to me, I'm sort of in the midst of this four foundations, but it sounds like they're very much walking through some of the experience you go through with the four foundations. You go through body, you go through
right.
sensations, feelings, all sorts of things. And so
Yeah.
they're doing a little bit of that. And then, but of course, they're jumping to the, and then we grasp at them, okay, and then, recognizing that there's no basis of designation for those sensations experienced by the body or the mind. So,
Okay. Okay. I'm sort of getting it. Yeah. That kind of makes sense to me. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Lori, for the question. Let's see. Where did we end?
When
we've we'd gone past numb. That's as much as I can say for sure.
I think we were at when the first paragraph, the first full paragraph on 518. I think that's where we.
So the self-radiance of mind manifests freely. When appearances are grasped as objects, the perceiving mind is deluded. At that time, it is not that appearances have become something separate. They appear as external objects because the mind has deluded itself. Appearances are simply mental appearances. Appearances or objects do not have even the slightest bit of existence as some object that is other than mind. Previously being obscured by ignorance or the mind's grasping, you did not see the nature of appearances. Now, having severed the continuum of fixated conceptuality, you recognize the nature without an object. Not fixating on appearances, they appear utterly empty and vividly without being objects. This is referred to as the connateness of appearances, is the radiance of the Dharmakaya. Now, sustain this without fabrication. Let your 6 modes of consciousness be free. Sustain your practice right with appearances. In that state, rest your mind without contrivance in its fundamental state, buoyant and at ease. Don't try to deliberately make that into something ecstatic, dazzling, void, or fantastic. Don't dream about the past. Don't speculate about the future. Don't ponder the present. Don't meditate on intellectual constructs. Don't engage in analysis about what is or is not. The direct realization of the inseparability of appearances and emptiness, with no blocking of or grasping onto appearances, is the dawning of Vipassana within appearances. It is the recognition of the unification of appearances and emptiness as the Dharmakaya. On the basis of continuously sustaining that, special experiences and realizations will develop. Guaranteed, or your money back. Those are the pointing out instructions given in relation to appearances. The third set of pointing out instructions. Cultivate them in your practice. That was the 7th session. That was sort of a mouthful, huh? Relation to appearances and body. Well, we should pause there. We have one more session, and then the conclusion. So that was sort of intense, that last one, huh? Yeah, that was different. Zeke, sorry. Thanks very much for joining us. And we will miss you. Come back again when you can. So, I think we have 2 more sessions, right? Today's the 17th, yeah. 24th, and then July 1. So next week we can conclude and do some review, and do some more review the following Tuesday as well, on July 4th. People, first, thank you, July 1st, Tuesday. People going away the July 4th week? Big trips the whole week? Nobody? I thought that's what Americans all did.
I'm going on a big trip to do Mahamudra on the 29th.
All right, where's that?
Somewhere in Westchester, I think.
Oh, right, we have a 1 day, yeah, the 29th. Please come if you can, yeah. At the Alliance Center, we'll become aligned, yeah. Okay, well, sorry.
No, I just wanted this odd occurrence in my neighborhood. Well, to me, it was odd. There's this little place, and it's called Beer Run, and people go on and they serve mostly beer and wine or something. And then, so I walked past there today, and it was closed, but there were Tibetan Buddhist prayer flags up in front of it, hung up.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that a little odd, or in some way?
Yeah, that is.
Not there before, no.
Yeah. You know, this time is a major holiday in the Tibetan Buddhist world called Sakadawa. This is the birth, enlightenment, and parinirvana of the Buddha. Supposedly all happened on the same day of the year, not the same year, obviously, but the same day. And it's like the full moon of this month or something, but like I saw, it was like some email said it was the 18th, and some said it was the 11th. But I saw some others that said it's tomorrow.
Well, it's also like the entire month.
Entire month is, yeah, Sakadawa month.
But
I'll have to investigate.
Yeah.
It seemed odd with that place, and it just stopped me in my tracks, you know. Like,
yeah, that's cool, Tibetan flag. Maybe they have Tibetan beer.
Yeah, or something, yeah.
Chong, right? What is it, Chong?
Yeah, oh my God.
I don't know. I went in there once, and I went in there. I was going to have a beer, but it's a tiny place. There was no place to sit that day, so I just left, you know.
Okay, well, bring your Tibetan card with you next time.
Okay.
So let's conclude. By this merit may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. That last session, sort of wiped out my mind. It feels like I gotta read that again.
It's because of the inseparability of ignorance and wisdom. So we actually want there to be fulfilled, not dispelled, because it's thought of as the same thing.
There you go. That was a cool session. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone. That was a very fun session, and I'll see you in the movement of stillness.
Bye.
Take care. See you next week.